to have that money to spend.
OK, to the issue closer to home, the newspaper war that's broken out between News and Fairfax, and if it was unspoken, Rebecca, you spoke it on Thursday in the Herald Sun with a story aimed directly at The Age and then breaking out into their treatment of Brian Waldron. He has undone what was fast becoming a rugby league dynasty by cheating the system at a level never before seen in a football code. So you did make the point that they shouldn't be given oxygen to Brian Waldron. My question to you is, why would you write that story when you open yourself up to the issues of conflict, which you acknowledge in the story that your partner is John Hartigan? You couldn't win writing that story.
No, but I don't sort of go, I don't live my life or, you know, work my career to win. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm a person who expresses opinions. That's what I do for a living. I'm no longer in the business of reporting news. I'm in the business of commentating on what's happening around me. I've been doing it. I'm now a journo for 30 years. So I just felt that I should have been transparent in that piece by declaring that John Hartigan was my partner rather than pretending that he wasn't and writing the piece anyway. But I felt very strongly about...
Conflict aside, Brian Waldron was a key player in the story. Every newspaper, particularly News Limited papers, they interview killers. They sent a journo to South Australia to a pub where they interviewed Wayne Carey's drunken, abusive father a few years ago.
Caro, but I don't agree with that form of journalism anyway.
Brian Waldron is not a murderer. I mean, he obviously had to speak. We had to hear what he had to say. And I thought it was a pretty independent, factual report by Andrew Rule, who's a very senior and credible journo. I don't see this as a newspaper war. I just am happy for the Melbourne Storm fans that there is one independent newspaper in this town reporting the story. And I'm not criticising News Limited or you specifically, but I can't see how you can in any way be independent on this, your newspaper, whereas I think The Age has been independent and I don't think we're engaging in a war.
No, Rebecca, I think most of what you've read in the Herald Sun, I think certainly from what I've read in the Herald Sun in the last week, based on the factual analysis, has been entirely accurate. And I think you can't argue the case from either side. I also think, though, that...
But you have argued the case from one side.
That was in an opinion piece, not in no news reporting of this.
But you've said that you believe that Fairfax has acted with, you know, sort of schadenfreude in dealing with a News Limited mishap.
I think certainly that given that Brian Waldron was trying to shop his story around to get $100,000 out of Channel 7 and then all of a sudden he turns up with a new spin doctor and he starts talking through this source to The Age, and...
He spoke directly to Andrew Rule. There was no one in the middle.
But I will also say, well, the source kept getting quoted, not what Brian Waldron, the source kept getting quoted. But I think there's been some misrepresentation this week. Well, I think it's time to be tough on Brian, because I think Brian went off on his third big football gig that he's had in his career, and he needs to be put under the spotlight well and truly.
I absolutely think that has happened in both papers.
We'll talk about Waldron in just a moment. I just want to show yesterday's Age, where they fought back, as you would expect. They rolled out Greg Baum, who's the Walkley Award-winning columnist, and as well as the pillow talk that was raised, he did put the question that was posed in your column is, why is News Limited so desperate to scapegoat Waldron and leave it at that? And then as an add-on to that, I would show you the cartoon from your column this morning of Brian Waldron. If you haven't got the point yet about the chief rat, there it is. It's none too subtle.
No, look, it's not too subtle, but that's the nature of, you know, of a Sunday Telegraph gossip column, that it's none too subtle. But I think Brian Waldron is certainly the person who's come under the spotlight this week. I think we'll find in the next couple of weeks that there'll be other people implicated as well. But certainly you can't sit back, even as a journalist from anywhere, and look at what's happened at the Melbourne Storm without being able to point the bone at one person and point the finger at one person, and that's Brian Waldron, because it appears, and it has been admitted by the new CEO, that he set this up.
That was done very firmly day one. I mean, it couldn't have been more firm when John Hartigan stood up and called him the chief architect. Couldn't have been more firm. 10 days down the track, I think we all have to be looking a bit deeper in this, because none of us, particularly those of us in the AFL who know Brian, can believe that this could have happened without the board or the owner's knowledge.
Rebecca, you're a very high experienced and high profile commentator on NRL. Why did you wait until last week to disclose your personal relationship with John Hartigan, and why do you think you have credibility in defending John Hartigan now?
Look, I don't think that my personal relationships... There's a lot of people in the media who have media marriages, and you don't have to sit up every time you make a comment in the media if you have a media marriage and say, oh, by the way,
But why was it relevant last week and not 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, because I was discussing News Limited, and I just felt, as did the editors of the Herald Sun, that it was only right that I declared that in that piece when I'm writing about John Hartigan News Limited. Mostly, thankfully, in the course of my job, I have absolutely nothing to do with John Hartigan and what he does in his everyday life, because it's nothing to do, no crossover at all with what I do. But in this case, there is, and Brad discussed that at the very beginning of the show. You know, news is heavily involved in this sport.
The total conflict of interest issue, again.
What's the future of the Storm?